Hello, everyone. How are you all doing this evening? So excited to be here with all of you. My name is Aisha Rios, and I use she, her pronouns. I want to begin by sharing a bit about language interpretation that we have available. We have made a commitment to create a space for language justice. What that means is that we want to create a space where everyone can participate and engage in the language that they feel most comfortable in. We will use simultaneous interpretation to create this space. For this reason, we have Spanish interpretation made available. If you are not fully bilingual, we ask that you select your preferred language. If you are bilingual, feel free to listen to everyone in their language. When you select your language, you can check mute original audio so you don't have to hear both languages at the same time. So here's the guidance to set this up. If you want to utilize this feature on the computer, click Interpretation at the bottom of the screen and select Spanish. If you're on a phone, tap More or the button with 3 dots in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Tap Interpretation and tap Spanish or English. We ask that everyone choose the language of your choice.
Buenas tardes. Esta noche hemos hecho un compromiso a la justicia del lenguaje. Lo que esto significa es que queremos crear un espacio donde todos puedan participar en el idioma en el que se sientan más cómodos. Usaremos la interpretación simultánea para crear este espacio. Tenemos interpretación al español. En la parte posterior de la pantalla hay un icono, es como un globo que dice interpretación. Si usted no es completamente bilingüe, le pedimos que seleccione un idioma en el que prefiere escuchar. En un segundo vamos a aprender la interpretación y podrá hacer esa selección. Si usted trae una tablet o un celular, le pedimos que busque los 3 puntitos o la opción de más y ahí podrá encontrar los ajustes de interpretación. Si tiene alguna pregunta, por favor, mándenos un chat. Muchas gracias.
With the interpretation feature in Zoom, you can also select to mute original audio so that you can only hear the Spanish interpretation. I will now give those who want Spanish interpretation a moment to turn that on. The rest of the tech instructions will be interpreted simultaneously. All right, we should be all set. We have provided English closed captioning for this event as well. To turn on captions on a computer, click the little up arrow in the corner of the closed caption button at the bottom of the screen and click Show Subtitle. If you are on a phone, captions should show automatically. Unfortunately, closed captioning does not work if you're utilizing the Spanish interpretation feature. We ask that everyone please keep their mics muted and screens on during the event. You may turn off your screen as needed. To make sure you can see all the panelists, we suggest setting your view to gallery view. And if you are on a computer, click View in the upper right-hand corner of the screen and make sure the gallery view is selected. If you're on a phone, simply swipe left or right to change between speaker view and gallery view. And finally, I also want to introduce you to our tech guides. The screen is Tech 1, Tech 2, Josie and Pushkar, if you need any assistance at any point. All right, so let's get started. As I said, my name is Aisha Rios. I use she, her pronouns. I work for Coactive Change. I'm founder and lead learning and change strategist. In that role, I work with change agents, like many of you here in this virtual space who are working to disrupt systems of oppression and create alternative possibilities for our futures. I was a part of the Giving Project this past fall in 2020, lose track of the years. And I really enjoyed the experience. It was a tremendous opportunity to engage in political education and support the amazing work that's happening here in Colorado, the important community organizing work, which I'm extremely passionate about. I come from a long line of educators and organizers. And as I just so deeply believe in the work that our panelists are here to share with us tonight. So thank you all so much. I would like to introduce you to Barclay Jones, Chinook Fund's program manager. He'll describe the Chinook Fund a bit more for you all.
Thanks so much, Aisha, and thanks so much for everyone being with us tonight. As Aisha said, my name is Barclay Jones. I'm the program manager at Chinook Fund, and I use he, him gender pronouns. We are so excited to have both new attendees and longtime friends of Chinook. Chinook Fund was founded in 1987. Our mission is to support grassroots organizations working on issues of social and economic justice. By pooling our collective resources, we seed groups making a positive systemic impact to improve the quality of life for all Coloradans. One of the areas that sets Chinook Fund apart from other funders in our state is our focus on funding radical, risky, and emerging groups. Grantee organizations must meet our core criteria of being constituent-led, community-wide, meaning they ensure that no one is left behind, and achieving lasting effect or systems change. We have been the first funder for many cutting-edge organizations in the state of Colorado. The average budget size of Chinook grantees is just over $100,000, and many organizations are run completely by volunteers. Because we believe long-lasting social change happens when impacted communities wield power, we prioritize funding groups who use community organizing strategies to build their collective power with people directly experiencing injustice. Through our innovating fundraising and grant-making program, The Giving Project, which Aisha just shared, she's an alumni, we're building a base of donor activists who are democratically moving resources where they are most needed. During the course of 6 months, Giving Project convenes a multiracial cross-class cohort of 20 to 25 people. So in Aisha's cohort, there were 23, and this spring we have 25 members. Those folks are building a sense of community with one another as they deepen their social justice analysis. They're also building skills for democratic grant-making and grassroots fundraising. And finally, they're taking action through one-on-one fundraising conversations, site visits, and consensus-based grant funding decisions. For our fall cohort last year, 23 participants raised $223,000 and $217.88 from almost 590 donors. So big props to the fall cohort. That funding then went to 18 organizations and also provided an incentive fund for $13,000 for our current cohort for this spring. By developing the fundraising leadership of our Giving Project members, Chinook Fund is able to reach many donors completely new to social justice and to build broad-based public support. Thank you again for being here with us tonight and for being a part of Chinook Fund's community. Back to you, Aisha.
Thank you, Barclay. Yes, as he just outlined, being a part of the Giving Project was a really, really special opportunity. And I'm so excited for you all to be here tonight to learn more from the organizations that we've helped fund and learn more about the amazing work that they're doing. I do want to give a shout out to all the folks on the line who have participated in the Giving Project before. And I also want to acknowledge all of you who are new to Chinook Fund. Welcome, thank you so much for being here. I want to quickly go over a few of the learning objectives for this evening so you know what to expect. For everyone here, what we're hoping is to provide you with an opportunity to learn directly from Chinook Fund grantees about the organizing strategies, victories, and challenges. We also hope that you all get a sense of what community organizing looks like in different contexts and why it's important. And then also specifically, we hope that the Chinook Fund Giving Project members have space to think critically about their roles as grant makers and funders. And that was my cat just walking into the door, into the room. And finally, I want to just say a little bit about the format for this evening. We'll be using a moderated format with me asking a couple of questions that Chinook crafted in advance. And then this will be followed by with a Q&A. So now that we're headed into the conversation, I would love everyone to do something to kind of create some energy, even though I can't see all of you. I'm imagining you're yelling or something fun and energizing and like shake it up. All right. Yay. Fabulous. Okay. All right. Well, let's get right into it now. So thank you and welcome to our presenters. I would love to introduce Briana with Soul to Soul Sisters, Jennifer with Four Corners Rainbow Youth Center, Nancy with Lamar Unidos, and Paz with Apprentice of Peace Youth Organization. So please introduce yourselves one by one, your pronouns, your organization, and briefly describe what you're working on right now. And please know there will be more space for detailed questions later in the panel. Paz, you want to start us off?
Sure, yes, thank you, and welcome everybody out there. My name is Paz Ryan, and I am the Executive Director and Co-Founder of the Apprentice of Peace Youth Organization. Anything else?
And a little bit of what you're working on.
Okay, yes. I'll go. We started off teaching Tai Chi and Qigong in the schools and in this program that we call Tai Chi for Peace, that focused on having real life conversations along with the movement. So as I was telling somebody earlier, I guess we was kind of doing psychosomatic work, even though we didn't necessarily call it that. But ultimately the work involves empowering students through a whole person approach that incorporates leadership, arts, wellness, and skilled trades. It's our STEM-based approach that we call the laws of life. And our mission is around reducing mental health stigma and the intersectionality of youth violence.
Thank you. How about Briana? You go next.
Hi there, can you hear me okay? All right, beautiful. Hi everyone, my name is Briana Simmons. I first want to acknowledge the Ute, Arapaho, and Cheyenne peoples whose land we currently reside on. I also want to give praise and honor to my ancestors whose names I do know and whose names I don't know. I use she, her, and hers pronouns. I work as the Black Women's Health, Healing, and Joy Coordinator for Soul to Soul Sisters. Right now, we're working on a lot of projects, but one that I would like to highlight is that we are really centering our organizational focus around deepening the conversation and actualization of reparations for Black people in the United States. As this conversation over the past year or so has become more salient around the country, we're strongly encouraging white people, organizations, congregations, and foundations to give sustained reparations to Soul Sisters, as we are a Black women's led healing and health-centered organization. And so many of the advances in the healthcare field have been the direct result of historic and present day medical injustices against Black women in particular. We're really focused on uplifting that conversation. We're actually working on a video project right now that speaks directly to this need. It follows the video project that we did last year. It's called Reparations Right Now, and the first one is going to be capturing testimonies of Black women and their experiences, Black women and girls and their experiences as they navigate COVID-19 and, you know, the different intersections of crises during this time.
Thank you so much, Briana.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Nancy, do you want to go next?
Sure, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you, Chinook, for the opportunity to be in here tonight. It is an honor to share this space with all of you. My name is Nancy Margarita Diaz Escapite, pronounced she, her, ella, and I am part of an amazing grassroots group. I work with Lamar Unidos, and it's a family-oriented grassroots organization in southeastern Colorado that is led by Latino women that organizes with that community and connects it with resources. We do also have several programs that go from licencias. Currently, we're partnership with Tax Help Colorado and making sure that families in southeastern Colorado have access to a quality and free tax assistance. We also have worked with some immigration issues. We are part of, are members of the Colorado Immigrants' Right Coalition, which is actually the reason why the Lamar community got started to get organized. And like I said, I'm very honored to be here and share this space with all of you.
Thank you, Nancy. All right, Jennifer.
Hey y'all, I'm Jennifer Stucka-Benally. I use the pronouns she, her, hers. And I would also like to acknowledge that the stolen land that I'm gathered on here in Durango, Colorado is the ancestral lands of the Nuchu, Apache, Pueblos, Hopi, Zuni, and Dene, or Navajo Nation. And it's important to understand that we've long been told from one dominant perspective without full acknowledgement of the tribes who've lived here before us. I am the executive director and co-founder of the Four Corners Rainbow Youth Center. We are physically located in Durango, but we serve a 9-county region. And we provide services to the LGBTQIA+ community, focusing on youth ages 5 to 18, their families and allies. We have a center where we provide after-school programs that consist of support groups, drop-in activities, social time, helping navigate through challenges that they may come across with unsupportive environments. And we also do a lot of work in the schools, providing gender and sexuality alliance clubs, as well as I promote educational trainings for the community. And so I encourage schools, school districts, places of business, other nonprofits to attend our trainings and get more educated on how to be stronger, active allies for the queer community. And yeah, that's a little bit about what we do.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you all so much. I'm so excited to have this conversation. Thank you all. And as a reminder, everyone, just take a breath and don't speak too fast when we're speaking to support the translators as well. So thank you. All right, so the very first question I have for all of you is, what are your organization and community's unique strengths and gifts? Shall I pass it to, let's see, Jennifer, since you just went and you're being expressive, you can kick it off.
So I don't know how many people have been to Durango. We are a small community, although in our region we're considered the big town, but we are still very small and rural and isolated by the mountains. However, I would really say some of our unique gifts and strengths as a community is because we are so small and we're not very spread out, it gives us this really great chance to connect with each other in ways that I never felt possible when I lived in bigger cities. Before Durango, I lived in Denver. And, you know, you can almost just walk down the street and knock on somebody's door and say, hey, do you have time to chat and network about this, you know, about this, or, you know, hey, I'm hearing this go on, you know, you want to grab coffee or lunch. There's kind of this easy way to really truly connect. COVID made that a little bit more challenging, but you get the sense of what I'm saying. And I would say also because of our size, we can organize pretty fast. COVID is an example of that, of how quickly the community rallied really fast to get needs met, and much quicker than at least my experience in the cities that I've lived before. I feel like we all kind of know each other, like who the players are when it comes to like change makers and key stakeholders and people that are really creating change and building power and doing collective work. We all know each other, and many of us are friends or we kind of socialize. And so I think that kind of can make it a little easier to just move, like literally move resources, gather quickly if we need to gather quickly. And I would say a unique gift in terms of like Rainbow Youth Center is we really act more like a chosen family. I mean, these youth really grow such strong connections with each other that I think go deeper even sometimes than just being friends. They like to call it their family. You know, they joke around that we're their adopted gay parents, right? And they're you know, we're kind of the family that some of them have never had before. And I think that's really special, at least to the Rainbow Youth Center community, is how tight knit we are, how close we are, and how easy it can be to get to somebody fast if needed, right? To bring a resource to their door or drop off a, you know, necessities when they need it, when they're like, my parents just lost their job or I don't have this. I think the closeness and the, you know, being a little bit closer to each other can sometimes be really helpful. So I think that's some of our strengths.
Thank you, Jennifer.
I can go ahead and go next. Thank you for that, Jennifer. I would say that as far as our community's unique gifts, our organization is a grassroots organization. We have our foundations in relational organizing, and so we really rely directly on building ongoing relationships, similar to what Jennifer has said, with the folks in our community in order to really steer and drive our work. And so something that I find really special is that we are intergenerational in the Black women that we reach. We really span from everyone from teenagers to the elderly. We have moms of all kinds participate, parents of all kinds participate in our programming, and they bring their babies along, and it's just a very fun intergenerational space. We are spiritually eclectic, with some who identify from Christian to Muslim to Jewish to those who practice Afro-Indigenous spiritualities. We are sexually fluid in our identities, and yeah, we just have a varying exposure and use of different wellness practices. And so I find that to be really special, and it's not something that we take lightly at all. You know, we really try and meet Black women where they are. And so I think on the organizational side of it, that is reflected in our work culture as well. You know, we're really clear that Black liberation work must liberate Black women right now. And so our passion for being powerful and really honoring and protecting the lives of Black women is really evidenced through the way that we work internally. And so some of my favorite aspects there are every first Wednesday, we have rest Wednesdays. So the staff, we get together and we prioritize resting together. We make space for dreams to be cultivated. We make space for receiving personal or professional ideas or messages. Another thing that I really enjoy about our work culture is the prioritization of economic justice for the staff members. So payday is every Friday at Soul to Soul Sisters, and you can't complain about that. And then, you know, there are a few other things that we do, such as prioritizing moving together and just different learning opportunities that we can do as a staff.
Thank you, Briana.
That's how I jump in there. Nancy was giving me the floor, looked like she was giving me the eye to go ahead. I think, and the question is again, what's strengths of our community or unique in terms of our community?
What are your organizations and communities' unique gifts and strengths?
I think that we create a space for listening. You know, we don't necessarily try to, I guess, make it about what any particular group of people. Is really everybody, because all of us are looking for peace. All of us are looking for support. All of us are looking for, you know, things to help us build our skills, our confidence, all of those things. And you know, for us, it's really just about creating that space and that conversation for learning, so that we're all always continuously learning as a group in terms of the program, but also within the organization as well, and being intentional about learning, because it's something that you see in the corporate world. It's like an intentional thing about kind of like learning and development and all that stuff, but it's like, okay, what about personally? Like, why don't we just make that a thing like that? We're just gonna be intentional about growing, about learning, about being authentically ourselves, regardless of what it is that we believe or whatever the case may be, but still being able to be respectful and still being able to learn and grow in the process, because we don't all know everything. There's so much to learn. And even in the space, when we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, it means something different depending on the group that you're talking to, right? When you're talking about Black people, that means one thing. When you talk about LGBTQ, it means one thing. When you talk about a different group, it means a different thing. So we need to be very intentional about what we're talking about and who we're talking about when we're talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, because what matters to somebody else, not to say it's not important to me, but that may not be my salient issue, it may not be the thing that's important to me. And if that's not being addressed, then I can't fully come and be my full self if I'm still having issues that aren't being addressed, right? So I think there's a number of issues or things that we can say or attribute to each other and to the various groups that we belong and identities that we associate with, all of those things. So just being very intentional about how that looks, but creating a space where we can just have the open dialogue, because I feel like a lot of times we're just so afraid to have a conversation, right? Even like when it comes to race, when it comes to anything, like we're just afraid to just have a conversation. I think that's where it starts. We're having a conversation.
I guess I cannot look at anyone else. So one of our community's unique gifts, I would say, our families. That's where all this work started, and it's amazing, the strength, the resilience, the wisdom the hope that our families bring, and that sense of belonging when we're all together. That's I think that's the one of the so many unique gifts that our community has. We're also in a rural community in Broward County, where the 39% of the population is Latino or Hispanic. I think it's very important to have all that and all the values that come with the family to start the foundation of our work. And as an organization, Lamar Unidos believes in our people, in our community. So I think that's one of our unique gifts as an organization. We believe in them, and we're working with the community, for the community, because we are also part of the community.
Thank you all. That was beautiful. So many themes are coming up, just connection and being with one another as humans and relationships. So thank you so much. My next question is, how do you know you're moving forward? Or said another way, how do you know you're building power and creating change?
Well, because we're seeing changes in our own lives through the work that we're doing. That's how we know we're moving forward. That's how we know we're building power, because we grew up, like Lamar Unidos grew up as a very informal group of people that just had a need and tried to find a way to solve that issue. We needed information. Being in a rural area where most of our Latino community is immigrant, it's a very vulnerable community. And when the SBT 251 program started, which is the driver's license for those that cannot prove legal status here in Colorado, there was people that was waiting for like 6-8 months in order to be able to get the appointment, which it was 3 or 4 months ahead. So now, knowing that most of our community, we're just working on renewals, renewing their driver's license. That's where we know that we're changing something. Their lives have improved. They're not afraid to drive and take their kids to school, or go to the doctor, or even take their kids to the park, because they can get behind the wheel and they're comfortable because they have their driver's license. That's how we know we're moving forward. We know also that we're creating change because we are learning and growing as a community. We're like I used to say, estamos moviendo el gallinero. So our community is waking up, and they're eager to learn and speak up and find ways, not just speak up to let people know, why we have this need or this is an issue in our community, but also learning a way to, and growing in a way, in the confidence and coming up with possible solutions. I think that's the way that we can create, and we're doing something to improve our own lives, and it's definitely moving us forward.
Yeah, thank you, Nancy. Thank you, everybody. I'll jump in and say that, man, you know, sometimes it's hard to say that you're moving forward when you see things continue to happen in the world and see things going on. You know, from race, which we know we've been dealing with for, you know, 50 plus years. There's people that older than us that have come and gone that have been dealing with this, and we still dealing with this. You know, we talk about mental health and the issues there, and what we see continuously happening, you know, over and over again. You know, it's it does make you question, like, all right, what impact am I really having at the end of the day? For us, it's about ultimately being able to create resilient community leaders as we move forward. And we've been intentionally doing evaluation since the beginning of the year with the students. And it's very interesting, the story that is telling in terms of, the overwhelming amount of students, that feel like they can't make an impact, or that they don't have, the support for the things that they may be going through, or have someone to talk to about things when they have problems or issues going on. Those numbers are still really high. You're talking about like 40-50% of students that like feel like this. So, and we already, just from the statistics alone, in terms from NAMI and other mental health statistics, we know, 1 in 5 youth have some form of mental health concern or issue, but 72% of them, 75% of them aren't talking to anyone or getting any sort of help, which at the end of the day, a youth that has a mental health issue that doesn't get the support or help that they need becomes an adult, right? With those same issues and or needs that never got addressed, never got resolved, never healed from, right? So, and then when they erupt or something happens or something triggers, right, then it's like, it's too late ultimately at that point. So, I think that's an interesting question. I think definitely, from our youth perspective and from their mouths in terms of, working with them through the isolation of this pandemic and, just in general, because we definitely focus on wellness, and all of that, and talking about mental health and all those things, their youth, and for everybody here, I know, or if you are aware, the youth violence has been rampant throughout this pandemic. It hasn't stopped. It didn't slow down. It almost like got worse within the pandemic, especially within the Black community, Black and brown community, right? It has not stopped. It even with the pandemic and the lack of movement or whatever that's been going on, like it's still been going on like constantly. So yeah, I think that's an interesting question. I would say we are learning and still figuring out what that looks like in a sense, because it's a constant I guess every day is kind of a constant reminder of the nature of these things and the seriousness of it, and how important it is to to be listening, to be there, to be supportive to young people, to people in general, and just have a heart, like, because there's a lot of people out there, that's really all they need. They just need somebody to say, man, I support you, I care, I believe in you, or whatever the case may be, and it makes all of the difference. It makes every bit of difference. So hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, like Paz said, it is difficult to know that you are making change when so much around you is happening, continues to happen. From Soul to Soul's perspective, we're pretty clear that the collective liberation that we seek is going to take time, especially after centuries of oppression. It's just going to take time. We're also clear, though, that change in and of itself is constant. And so I think one thing that we try to put at the forefront of our organization is being adaptable, being able to respond to the shifts, the many, many shifts that come and go, just like the ebbs and flows with life and how that impacts the lives of the community that we're supporting. And so, similar to what I said earlier, just about the way that we try and structure our programming to support Black women and, experiencing liberation in some way in this lifetime. We have had the opportunity to expand our network over the last year, particularly with, the virtual opportunity that the pandemic, the unfortunate and terrible pandemic offered. We have been able to provide direct services through our doula program, resources and referrals for mental health, intimate partner violence, and just reproductive health issues that Black women are facing. We have been able to provide financial assistance directly to Black women and their families. Pastoral care, the co-founders of Soul to Soul Sisters are ministers, and so they offer pastoral care in that way. And yeah, just in general, like our programming is kind of structured to affirm Black women's spirituality and having that be a place where, you know, like no one can take that from us. And yeah, just, you know, exposing Black women and deepening Black women's healing modalities through all kinds of things, yoga and breath work and so on. And so also, like Paz said earlier, you know, we do create a space to listen. And so if there's something that we're not doing right or not doing effectively, we try to be responsive to that, as well as to the positive feedback that we're getting from folks saying that, you know, it has impacted their lives in any way.
It's so inspiring to hear all of you talk about your work and what's happening. And I was just reflecting in my head that I think a strength that I'm hearing from all of our organizations is our ability to open up space and really listen, like really listen, right? And not try to presume what somebody needs, even if we have some sort of related life experience. Everybody's individual experience is so different. I can't pretend to know what it's like to be a youth right now, even though I was at one point and I am queer. I don't know what it's like now, right? And, you know, it is hard to measure this sometimes. I feel like since we started this work in Durango and in the Four Corners, I feel like sometimes it's like 2 steps forward, 1.5 steps back, or like 1 step forward, 2 steps back, right? I feel like there's this, I don't know. And so when I was thinking about this question, as much as there's hurdles and obstacles happening almost every day, such as the superintendent contacting me saying a parent is complaining about one of the GSA queer support clubs that I'm helping run in the middle schools, and that I can't attend until he investigates it, right? That doesn't feel like progress. And I have to remember that 4 years ago, there were 0 GSAs in any schools, and now there's 6 GSAs in 6 different schools in our district. So I'm like, okay. So even though there's some pushback happening, right? And unfortunately, it was because of the virtual, a parent eavesdropped on the virtual group, right? And the kid was outed, right? And even though we set up safety perimeters for that, things happen, right? Because they're at home. That the pandemic has not been healthy for so many of our communities, right? Communities that were already so isolated, right? And so I have to look at stories like that. I have to look at stories like schools telling me literally, oh, we don't have those kind of people here. All right. And now you have a GSA in your school. Like, all right, like that's a win. And you brought me in for a training after telling me 5 years ago, those kind of people aren't in my school, right? We're also very rural and conservative, right? And so I have to remember this, that 5.5 years ago, there were 0 resources for the queer community in this entire region that I'm in. And now we're serving 9 counties, right? And because of that, 4 different counties have started their own thing, you know, kind of modeling after what we've done, right? Calling me, how did you do this? I want to learn from you. And I'm like, I'm going to help you, right? And helping their own community with their own strengths and their own uniqueness start their own thing that works for them, right? And so I have to remember this, right? Because that is power building, that is change. I love this story. Going from, right, the schools wanting nothing to do with queerness and not wanting these clubs at all, to a group of youth got together, like designed posters, did their research, scheduled a meeting with the principal and was like, we need this every week, because the principal was only allowing it like once a month. And they were like, we need this every week, and use the hour to voice and advocate for themselves with us in the background, like providing some support. But really, like, they took it and led with it. We were just there to, like, they had questions, or if they needed some, like, you got this, you know, and they did it, right? They did it themselves. And the principal was like, I think that we actually, yeah, we're going to change this to every week, right? We're going to provide this opportunity to y'all every week. So the youth are incredible. I really see how much more they're voicing, they're showing up, they're coming out, they're, you know, asking policies at places they work to change, asking places they frequent, can you change your single stall restroom to an all gender bath? Like, they're really speaking up. And I see that as change, right? That when we started this 5.5 years ago, they were like, oh, I don't know if I'd ever show up to a GSA in my school. My school's not safe enough, or I don't think I could ever speak up or come out in my community. And or just schools reaching out to me, come in and provide a training, you know, daycare is reaching out to me, come in and provide a training. So becoming more visible, people asking more questions, youth speaking up, that's change, right? And even though I feel like it's not happening fast enough, or I feel like I keep having to push so hard, you know, I really try to lead with remembering where we're coming from 5.5 years ago when there was nothing, and where we are now, and to build on that, to build on the strengths and the voices of the youth, because they are our leaders, right? And as long as we keep listening, I think change is going to keep happening.
Go for it, Briana.
I was just going to say that's such a good reminder to, you know, just celebrate our wins. You know, I think with the work that we do, at least speaking for myself, you know, you can get so emotionally involved that it's like, no, it's not enough. It's not enough. But yeah, just the reminder to celebrate our wins is greatly appreciated.
All the time, Briana. My therapist tells me that every time I meet with her. You got to celebrate the wins. You got to celebrate the wins.
Thank you all so much. Any other reflections hearing you all share?
I definitely concur with celebrating the wins. Like, you know, we, especially as ED's a nonprofit, I tell people all the time, like, we expected to make magic with nothing. And, you know, and when we do, we still don't get any applause. So we definitely got to pat ourselves on the back and make sure that, you know, we're giving ourselves the encouragement, right, that we need, and encourage each other.
So true, so true. Yeah, and the theme I'm hearing around really listening, I think is so critical, because it's so often in our society, things operate in really top down and paternalistic ways across all the systems, and that is what makes the work you all are doing so amazing. You're really, you're trying to dismantle that tendency in our society, which is so oppressive and violent. So thank you. All right, well, let's move on to some Q&A. Let's see, and if anyone in the audience has any questions you would like to ask our presenters, please type them into the Q&A. I see one comment from Maureen. I am super impressed with these speakers. Woo woo, pat on the backs. I also encourage consideration of disabled people, including intellectual developmental disability, to be included as DEI. We are all temporarily able-bodied, and there is intersectionality of both historically and currently oppressed. Thanks all for sharing. Does that stir anything for you all?
Yeah, we of course, being grant funded, are required by some of our funders to, collect data. We're still trying to, I feel like we're constantly going back to the drawing board to figure out how to do that equitably, right? But in our, we ask a lot of questions in our surveys, and our data is showing that 90% of our youth and families do report a disability. Most of our youth are either on a 504 plan or an IEP, which is an individualized educational plan in school. The 504 is kind of the step before the IEP. And that we work really closely with Southwest Center for Independence and Community Connections here. Actually, the building that we're in, I've been advocating with the center to change our bathrooms. They're kind of like ADA accessible, but not really, but we're changing it into a big family. It's a family room that are ADA and a gender, like an all gender bathroom. So we're taking a multi-stall and shifting it. And I think that you're right, Maureen. I think that this gets left out of the conversation quite frequently. In the queer community, there's a really high correlation between people that are transgender and on the autism spectrum. So we see a lot of neurodiversity in our groups, and that shows up, right? And so we really have to be attentive to how we're running groups and how we're making sure it's accessible to everyone, especially people that are neurodiverse or have other disabilities in other kind of ways.
Thank you, Jennifer. All right, so my next question is, what sustained you in this work? We talked a little bit about that already, right? Just like the challenges of like one step forward and two back, and struggling to like keep moving forward in that way and making sense of it. So I would love to hear more on that.
For me, I would say what sustains me is the work itself. Like, I enjoy the process. I enjoy, I'm not gonna say I enjoy everything that comes with it, but I enjoy most of the things that come with it. And it's the why for me. It's the why I do it. It's the why, when young people share things with you that are, just moving, or that the help or support that they need is really coming through you, or you're that only person that kind of can do that, or you have that opportunity to do that, or they tell you how much they appreciate you for doing something. That's what sustains me. Like them saying, man, I appreciate the conversation, man. This is great being a part of, this group, or whatever the case may be, man. The Tai Chi and the breathing, made me feel like this, and I got to just actually relax, and whatever the case may be. Those are the things that ultimately sustain me, right? When people actually benefit from the work and share that benefit from the work. And it's the why, right? In terms of why you do it, right? And that's really my why, is to have an impact and create impact. I definitely think about things that I didn't have, or things that I would have wished people would have done or said, or whatever the case may be, in terms of my approach, and try to be as personable as possible. But it's just really being there, because again, I know that that's usually all it takes, is just a simple, man, I believe in you, you can do it, all those little things that we take for granted, and how important and how big it is for young people, even adults, but especially young people.
I can add that something that sustains me in the work is kind of allowing for the things that you wouldn't typically think of as the work to be the work. So such as resting, like resting is the work, celebrating your wins, really creating spaces to cultivate joy with and among each other are some of the things that sustain me in this work and really just keep me going. Yeah, that's all I would add.
I will say that what sustain our work is I'm going back to our families. That's the fuel, that's our passion, that's where our love and our essence is, and that's why we do this work for our families. We all want a better world. We just want a better life. And what wouldn't you do for your kids, for your family, for your loved ones? So that's what sustained our work here.
I 100% agree with what y'all all said. You know, it's who I get to work with. I mean, I can have the worst day, right? Because, you know, there's someone being oppressive or discriminatory or, you know, saying some hateful stuff online about us. And then I can show up to a group, one of our, you know, drop-ins or support groups or whatever it is we're running that day, and it all goes away. Whatever the stress was or whatever I was worried about, I'm like, it's just gone, poof, gone, right? Because I'm there with these brilliant minds. I can't tell you how many times people look at me and they go, you like working with youth and adolescents? And I'm like, heck yeah, like they're the best, they're brilliant, they're so creative. They haven't forgotten how to use their imagination and their creativity in ways that we sometimes forget as adults, how to be playful, how to be silly, how to be joyful. And they're the change makers, right? Like, I don't even know if I would consider myself that, because I'm just there providing the space, but they're doing it, right? They're creating the joy, they're creating the fun, they're creating the laughter, they're creating the healing for each other, they're creating the healing for the community. And quite frankly, I think healing for me too. Growing up in Missouri City, Texas, which is directly south of Houston in the 90s, was not safe as a queer person. I was not even out in my high school, yet I would get bullied all the time because people assumed that I was. And I didn't have a space. There weren't GSAs at that point. There wasn't a center I could go to. And so I'm like, well, that needs to change, right? And that's what I'm just providing the space, right? But that's what the youth and families are what sustains me, right? It's getting a text saying, oh my God, the care package you just sent like saved my life, right? Or the grocery gift card that you just dropped off literally is allowing us to eat this week, or whatever it is, right? Or, you know, you're literally the most important, you know, adult in my life, or this group of friends are the people that I can trust and tell anything to. I know I can come to this group and say anything, and I'm not going to be judged, and they're going to give me support, and I'm going to get advice, and I'm going to be okay today, right? So yeah, it's really them, right? And of course, making sure that I'm taking care of myself. Briana, I love that you keep talking about rest. I have to remind myself of that all the time, especially working from home, that I'm not on my email at 8 o'clock at night. You know, so I think it's also what sustains me is I'm in therapy every month, you know, I'm, you know, socializing with my friends, my buddies, the people who really light up my life, and doing my work, whatever that is, making sure that I'm really giving myself the space to do the work.
Thank you, Jennifer. And there was a quick question from the audience. What is GSA?
Oh, sorry about that. Gender and Sexuality Alliance Club.
Thank you. That was my mistake too. Acronym check. All right, so here's a question from the audience. I'd be curious to know if the panelists are open to sharing about what it was like for them as grant seekers to participate in the Giving Project funding model. Thanks.
I can't speak to this directly as my executive director would be able to, but I do know from other conversations with her that the grantee processes that she has found to be the most effective and all the things are the ones where there's a clear trust from the grantor, that, you know, whatever the organization feels is best to do with those funds is what we're trusting to take place. And the grantor isn't making the process laborious, as we already have so much that we are carrying as a nonprofit, as a small nonprofit organization. And so I would imagine that those things have been present in this process as well. But
I would definitely concur with that. Again, and also I didn't have as much involvement in the process as our grant writer, but definitely just from the involvement that I did have, you know, a lot of foundations or grant RFPs or whatever, you kind of have to fit in this bucket, or there's this feeling of trying to fit into this bucket to get, you know, them to like you and want to fund you, so to speak. And like Briana said, this was like, I think, very clear and more direct in terms of, instead of people being gatekeepers to funding, like they were really invested in the process, and we were able to both, you know, talk about the impact and how we're both doing that in terms of them as funders or grant makers, and us as the recipients and, you know, the ones that are receiving the funds. So I will agree.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I agree. When I started writing grants, outside of what I could write in terms of Durango, Chinook was the first non-local grant that I applied for. And right away, I was like, oh, wow, I want a relationship with this foundation. They really are, you know, walking the talk, and like you said, not gatekeeping, or sometimes I don't know what goes on in those board rooms where they're making decisions about money and ways that are potentially really just continue systemic oppression, right? And hold money in the way. Anyway, I just felt like I could really trust the process and how decisions were being made, and knew that our values aligned.
I agree. Well, it was also one of our first grants. And I think I was very fortunate because the process was very accessible, simple. And being the first time doing that in a different language, it was kind of scary. So I was kind of like, even before I sent it, I was kind of like, I don't know if I'm doing it right. and very, very nervous of applying for something. But knowing that we're not alone, that there are other organizations out there that can support your work, and they're kind, and they listen, and they create this type of spaces for our rural grassroots community organizations, it gives you, or makes, at least in my case, it makes me feel more confident that the work that we're doing is worth it. Even if you cannot even sleep thinking, how am I gonna do it? And you have a big book right next to you, a dictionary, trying to find the right words. So it's a learning experience that was, for ourselves, very rewarding. And then being granted, it was amazing. So yeah, that's how it was for Lamar Unidos to participate in this project.
Thank you all so much. So this is another question from the audience. How do your organizations build leadership within the communities in which you work? So something we touched on already, but if there's any other really interesting nuggets to share and build off what we've already discussed, that would be wonderful.
You know, I think that with youth especially, they've been told so often they don't know what they're talking about, or they can't have a voice. And so I think, you know, we do have to, you know, kind of build confidence and really foster this idea of them being these brilliant beings that are valued, and you know, and it's working with skills. You know, sometimes youth, you know, need help with communication skills, or like how to, you know, how to approach something. And so we're there to help with that. But I think it's really giving them opportunities, like consistently presenting opportunity after opportunity. Same thing with our families, right? But just consistently providing many opportunities so that they know it's not just lip service, or we're just, you know, like that there really are continued opportunities for them to step into that leadership role. And they when they're encouraged and supported, a lot of them do it, right? They find the confidence to do it. So I think it's the opportunities.
Thank you, Jennifer. And I think the audio went out for a moment, so I'll repeat the question just to make sure everyone else could hear. How do your organizations build leadership within the community in which you work?
I think one of the main things that Lamar Unidos works on is trust. We need to build a relationship based on trust with our community. And once, at least I'm talking for Lamar, once they see that you're being honest, you are someone they can trust, then things start building up, and that's how you can get a good relationship within the community, and then you can work with them shoulder to shoulder and trying to find, like I said, solutions or options for the issues that whatever it is that we're facing as a community. But I think it all starts with trust and communication.
One way that we build leadership in the communities in which we serve is that through our programming. I'm thinking specifically about a program that I run called Self-Love Saturdays for Black women. We hire Black women to facilitate those workshops. And so it gives Black women leaders an opportunity to expose their work to other Black women. And hopefully build relationships that are continuous and you know, just help to deepen relationship building between and amongst not only our staff, but the participants in our programs. Another way that we do this is through our Sacred Seeds Black Doula Collective of Colorado. We're connected to 15 to 20 doulas throughout the state, and we offer just a networking space and yeah, just a place, a landing place for Black doulas to come to and receive support to be able to, you know, prioritize their own healing. And on top of that, to just have an opportunity to develop as a birth worker in the community and really be able to have exposure and support for continuing education opportunities as a birth worker.
Yeah, I would say for us, developing leadership in the community for us is about empowering people first and addressing them as a whole person, and looking at the different things that are impacting them, you know, that often is overlooked or doesn't get talked about. So kind of back to what we started about, and say that Nancy was saying, listening and kind of building trust and just creating that relationship. It's a partnership at the end of the day. You know, we don't have the power to change anybody's life, but we can help them change their lives, right, themselves. It's a partnership thing. So we really focus on just empowering them as people so that they can make the best decisions for themselves, so that, and then know that they also have support in those decisions and things that are going on. So really empowering them and giving them the tools and the skills to be the leaders that they need to be for themselves and for the community.
Wow, that was spectacular. Thank you all so much. So many themes. My background and training is in qualitative analysis, so I'm making all these connections right now, but I'll spare you. My final question is starting with a quote from author, activist, and spoken word artist Lolita Amersha, who says, quote, "All organizing is science fiction, because in working for change, we must imagine a world that has never existed. And and we have to, quote, collectively dream new worlds, end quote, so that we can begin to create them." So especially considering this moment we are in, when it comes to our collective future, what do you imagine?
I will say that I imagine a future where my community participates and influences the decision making that affects their living, their lives, where there is accountability for our wrongdoings, but also for what we're doing right. And in a collective future where we all care about each other, where and we care about this world, about Earth, and we're respected. And I guess I'm a dreamer, but that's what I see when we call about collective future. I see equity, I see justice, I see, most of all, I see that we care about each other and about our Earth, about this world where we live in.
I would say that I imagine a world where we realize our unlimited potential and abundance that we live in, the abundance that we live in, and, you know, intentionally manifest and live from that space, you know, and leaving this scarcity and competitive mind state, if you will, behind, and really focused on just working together, like Nancy said, caring about the planet, caring about ourselves, caring about each other intentionally, and really doing it not from a you know, an ego place or religious place, but from a heart space, that really, again, is our connection to everything else, because we're all connected anyway. And it's just recognizing that and walking in that power.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, when you think of, when I dream about it, I kind of dream about it in this generational way where like, it's like we're almost leaving our life to the next generation better and then better, right? That like with each generation, it's better because, you know, the decision makers really are the people from the community, right? That you know, yeah, that we're making decisions for our own communities, right? In ways that we actually need and want, right? And I don't know, and just allowing humans to be truly authentic. I just dream of this world, especially when I, you know, specifically thinking about the queer population, this world where it's not heteronormative, it's not cisnormative, where you do get to truly show up as your authentic self in a way that truly is safe and loved and accepted, and that's the norm, right? That we're all these creative beings, but that's what's beautiful about us, right? And that we can show up in that way without being persecuted for who we are. And so, yeah.
Yeah, that's a big question. I agree with all of the sentiments that my co-panelists have shared. I would add that, you know, so much of the human experience is like struggle and chaos and violence and, you know, just things that really aren't aligned with what I believe we're all here for. And so I would like to see peace and joy. And I love, you know, what you said, Paz, about abundance, to be a part of our collective future. Just really the things that are the polar opposite of all of what we are fighting against, is what I would love to imagine for us in the future.
Wow, thank you all so much. That was really amazing, just holding it together, trying to hold it together. Any other additional reflections to share? Okay. Well, I so deeply appreciate all of you, and this conversation has been remarkable. There's just, I think, the ways that you've articulated the importance of connection and building community with one another, and really building community with one another, and really challenging the really oppressive ways in which these systems operate to create so much harm, and doing that within your own, to quote Dr. Beverly Tatum, your own spheres of influence, because, you know, who we can touch, that it feels like, based on what you've all shared today, like that's where we start, right? And just build off of that. So thank you all so much. For the closing, I just want to say thank you all, everyone here who is on the line with us this evening. We really appreciate you being here with us and holding this space. And I also want to remind folks, or let folks know, if this is Chinook's new for you, there is opportunity for you to donate to the Chinook Fund. If you're moved by this work, we would love your donation. So please go to the Chinook Fund website. That's the chinookfund.org, and you can make a donation there. Please do indicate that it is for the Giving Project. And for the Giving Project, please visit the Chinook website to see more information about the next opportunity to engage in the cohort. If you have additional questions about the Giving Project, you can jump in there. And also please follow up with the programs team member if you have questions beyond what's available on the website. And then for the Giving Project members, please take a 5-minute break, and we will reconvene at 7:35 or 10-minute break, 15-minute break. And everyone else, thank you so much. This has been really wonderful, and I just am floored. So I hope you've all had a wonderful evening, and thank you for being a part of the movement for justice in Colorado.
Yes, thank you all so much. I loved learning about your organizations, and hopefully we'll have a chance to connect again.
I was just thinking the same thing. Like, I feel so inspired by all of you and all the amazing work you're doing, and I hope we can continue partnering and working together and just, right, being in this work together as supports for one another.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I'm looking
All
forward
right,
to it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Likewise.
Thank you for
Good night.
everyone at the fund that made this happen.
Yes. Thank you.
Bye-bye.